we must be close to an election. It's time now for a bonus state of play here on First. And this time we introduce Steve Tanzer. His voice is familiar, and so is his website, DelawareLiberal.net. Steve, thanks for being here on First.
Oh, my pleasure.
And we're taking a look at the election of a person who will be possibly a heartbeat away from taking over for the governor of Delaware. Of course, the lieutenant governor's race. We haven't had a lieutenant governor in the last couple of years since Matt Dehn stepped down as he took over the attorney general's role. Do we really need a lieutenant governor in Delaware?
Not really. I mean, if you take a look at what the lieutenant governor's jobs are, they essentially have the function of presiding over the state senate, basically implementing whatever version of Robert's Rules of Order the state senate, is doing. And his only other official function is to chair the Board of Pardons. So when you look at it, what you're talking about is the person's getting paid $78,000, $79,000 a year. It's in between there. And they basically show up 50 days a year, which are the legislative days. And you know what? They don't even have to show up on those days, because if they don't show up, the President Pro Tem, President Pro Tempore, who is Patty Blevins, would actually preside over the Senate. And if she was running a bill, someone else would.
And that's what's happened over the last 2 years.
Exactly.
She's run it, or she's had somebody fill in for her.
Exactly. So I think the state of Delaware has survived without a lieutenant governor. In fact, the lieutenant governor's office was not even implemented until the Delaware Constitution of 1897. And I don't know if it came to someone in a fever dream or what have you, but that's when it was created. So in essence, it's a great job. You get paid that kind of money. You maybe show up 60 days a year, and they're short days, except for like the end of June.
Right, when we go all night, right?
You can do whatever you want. If you can be a college professor, you can be an attorney, you can do whatever you want in your spare time. So, and during the course of the time I spent in Dover, I worked for the legislature for 24 years, and then I've been blogging about it for the last 8. I mean, you look at Matt Dehn, and maybe you look at John Carney and Ruth Ann Minner, but really, for the most part, the lieutenant governors aren't really necessarily the people who would automatically become the next governor of the state of Delaware, unless, of course, something happened to the governor while they were in office.
All right, so let's take a look at some of the people who want this very sort of cushy job. Let's play a little political word play here.
Sure.
And kind of stream of consciousness. We'll give you the candidate's name and tell us kind of what they're all about and maybe
Sure.
maybe their chances. Let's start with Sherry Dorsey Walker.
She's been a councilman, Wilmington councilman, since 2012. She almost instantaneously ran for a state senate seat in 2014, which she almost won, actually. And then she's now running for lieutenant governor. She also is an independent film producer, and I don't have my cheat sheet in front of me, but it's Sisters with a Purpose is the name of her independent film company.
Okay, and next, Brad Eby.
Brad Eby has been a levy court commissioner in Kent County since 2007. He's also a trial lawyer, and he's done quite a bit of pro bono work. I think he's someone who's impressed a lot of the legislative insiders who may be wishing perhaps he'd run for a legislative seat.
Okay, Greg Fuller.
Greg Fuller was a register of wills in Sussex County for 2 years. I think it was 2010, 2012. He was actually appointed to fill out a term that somebody else, I forgot what office they ran for, it might have been a state senate seat or something like that, vacated. He's also done some missionary work down in Haiti, and that's about it for him.
Okay, that's great.
He's also he was a 20-year Army vet.
Okay. And then maybe one of the most familiar names on this list for people who've followed state politics, Bethany Hall Long.
Bethany Hall Long has been a state representative. She is now a state senator. She's also a distinguished professor of nursing at the University of Delaware. And when I say distinguished, that was actually an award that was bestowed upon her as like a superior faculty member. She's certainly one of the people most likely to win. The issue there, the question I would have is, here's someone who has quite a bit of influence in the Senate, especially in the areas of public health. And she's actually been running on a public health platform, yet as lieutenant governor, she would have far less influence on that issue than she would as a member of her own caucus.
Okay, Kathleen McGinnis.
It may not be politic to say so, but Kathleen McGinnis is essentially Pete Schwarzkopf, who is the Speaker of the House, right, designated candidate in this race. She was, get this, a non-residential member of the Rehoboth City Commission. And she actually had a small business. It was an independent pharmacy down there. There's a little bit of controversy around her campaign because she moved to Utah in 2010. She said, I think she said she had a couple of kids who were participating in some kind of a sporting activity. She registered to vote. She voted twice, and she got a driver's license.
In 2010.
Yeah, the state constitution says that in order to be lieutenant governor or governor, you must have lived in Delaware 6 consecutive years. A favorable ruling from the Department of Elections has kept her on the ballot. Who's to say if that will continue if she actually wins the primary?
Okay, and then finally, last but not least, Ciro Papady.
Ciro Papady is the Register of Wills for Newcastle County. He's been that since 2012. His county website calls him a dynamic Register of Wills. And it claims that he saved about $2.3 million in county funding due to some of the reforms that he has implemented. He's very active in the Italian-American community, serves on a state commission on, there actually is such a thing, a state commission on Italian-American culture.
All right, so I guess the big question is, A, who is the favorite in this race, and B, does it really matter who wins other than for that winner's future political career? Kind of setting them on a path here in Delaware to be in the incumbent party is certainly beneficial. Does it matter beyond that?
Not really, because in general, and in fact, I can't think of a single exception, although maybe when Mike Castle was lieutenant governor to Pete DuPont, which goes back to my very beginning down there, very rarely has the governor actually given the lieutenant governor anything to do. Since the constitutional mandates for the lieutenant governor are so narrow,
right,
unless the governor says, I want you to head up this project, what are they going to do? I mean, you had, in one case, S.B. Wu, a Democrat serving under a Republican. You had Ruth Ann Minner, who chafed under Tom Carper. You had John Carney, who chafed under Ruth Ann Minner. John Carney's, the one key thing he did was he's created a lieutenant governor's fitness challenge. I mean, so in general, the answer is it doesn't really matter. It's not who's going to, implement the Roberts Rules of Orders more effectively, but it is important for those who really view the office as a stepping stone, realistically. And I mean, I think there are 2 or 3 who fit that bill, and then 3 who it's like, I think I'd almost consider voting for him because it's like, hey, I want the $78,000. I don't have to do that much.
Perfect. And the winner of the September 13th primary will take on Republican
Lamar Gunn. Lamar Gunn has a distinction of, he ran and lost in a race for, I believe it was Kent County Recorder of Deeds. They had not 1, not 2, but 3 recounts of the hand ballots until they determined that he had lost by a 2-vote margin. And he was seeking a 4th recount when the Delaware Superior Court said, okay, 3 is enough.
All right, we'll see how it shakes out, and we'll be reading Steve Tanzer and his website, DelawareLiberal.net. Thanks so much for your insights. Appreciate it.
My pleasure.